Today is Daf Yotes. We're holding at the very top. So the Gemara is more discussing a machlokes amoraim if Megillas Tainus was batel or not. And the Gemara brought a raya from the fact that they added a day on Gimel Tishrei. And why would they add if it was already batel? To which the Gemara answered, it was talking about Bizman Beis Hamikdash Kaim. So while the Beis Hamikdash was still around, that of course everybody agrees Megillas Tainus was still around. And that the Gemara is saying that we added the Gimel Tishrei to. So now, in fact, the Gemara at the very top of Yotes Amud Aleph, if it's true that they added the Gimel Tishrei in the time that the Beis Hamikdash was Kaim, so v'tepikle the Havla Yom Shenareg B'Gedalia Ben Achikim, why did you have to add it as a Yantiv? Anyhow, it's a Yantiv because, like the pasuk in Zechariah said, we saw yesterday, the things that were a Tainus during the Galus, when it came to the Beis Hamikdash, it was a Yom Simcha. So right there, it's a Yantiv and it's Aser B'Tainus. And for the Gemara, Amarav leNitzuchel lesser es shalafonov to aser that which was in front of it, because the Yom Tovim in Megillas Tainus not only is that day Aser B'Tainus, but also the day before it and the day after it. Anyhow, it's aser. It's the day that's after Rosh Chodesh. Now, the Ritva points out that the Gemara could have also asked that it's Beis Tishrei, which is the second day of Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara could have answered, you still would have to need the Gimel Tishrei in Yerushalayim or the Beis Havav, where they wouldn't have any suffix. Al-Kapanim, in fact, the Gemara, but it is the day after Rosh Chodesh, and presumably Rosh Chodesh also is a Yantiv that asers both the day before it and the day after it. And for the Gemara, Rosh Chodesh de Araisa, Udaraisa loy boy chizuk. If we're matter to fast on the day before or the day after Rosh Chodesh, we're not worried that you might come to do so on Rosh Chodesh. It doesn't need chizuk. Detanya hayamam eila haksuva Megillas Tainus these days asurin bein lifnei and bein lachreim, the aser b'tainus both the day before and after. Shabbos is yamim tovim, which themselves are aser heim asurim, but lifnei and lachreim mutar, the day before and after are mutar. My hefesh ben zelazah, what's the difference? Halalu divrei Torah vein divrei Torah tzirichin chizuk. It doesn't need chizuk, meaning we're not worried that you might come to fast on the day itself. But halalu divrei you shouldn't come to fast on the Yantiv itself, so they said it's also us the day before and the day after. In fact, it's still no good. That is a Derabanan, presumably it's Tzrichin Chizuk, and therefore the day before, the Beis Tishrei is anyhow Aser. So what are you telling me that we added the Gimel Tishrei of the Shtaris? Because it achieves the day before. The day before, anyhow, is also the day before Gedalia ben Achikoim. And for the Gemara Ravashi, Gedalia ben Achikoim divrei Kabbalah, divrei Kabbalah kedivrei Torah damu. In this context, it's like kedivrei Torah. It does not need chizuk, and therefore the day before it would be mutter. That's why when they added the Gimel Tishrei of Shtaris, what it achieved is that the day before now becomes Aser B'Tainus as well. It says in Megillas Tainus on the 28th day of Adar, there was good news that came to the Yidden. They won't have to remove themselves from the Torah. Why? The Romans made a gzeir that they shouldn't be Isaac in Torah. Not to do Milah, v'sheyichalu Shabbos and to do Mechal Shabbos. Ma also Yehuda ben Shamua v'chaveirav holchu v'natlu eitzah mimatronisa achas. So Yehuda ben Shamua and his colleagues, they went and they took eitzah from a certain Roman woman. All the Chashuv Romans knew her well. Amran, this was the eitzah she said to them. Amr lahem, bayu v'hifginu b'layla. Go and cry out in the middle of the night, and maybe they'll listen to you. So that's what they did. Hochu v'hifginu b'layla. They crowded at night. Amr, this is what they said. Ish Shemayim, like Laman Hashem, for heaven's sake. La yachechem anachnu. Are we not brothers? We're Yaakov and Esav. We're brothers. V'lo b'nei av echad anachnu. Don't we come from the same father? From Yitzchak. V'lo b'nei ema achas anachnu. We come from the same mother, Rivka. So why are we different from any other nation? That your guys are on us these terrible things. And Ataka worked, ubitlum. So they were mevatel the three gzeres, the Torah, the Milah, and the Shabbos. They made a yantiv. Now, frankly, when we said about the Megillas Tainus, same kash as before. If it was already bottle, kamaisa bottle, achranaisa receiving, they added on to something which is already bottle, doesn't make sense. When you tell me the same Torah, it says, it can't be. Yehuda ben Shamua, Talmidei Sharabi Meir. Yehuda ben Shamua, who is the person in the Brisa, in the story of Megillas Tainus, he's the Talmud of Remeir. Remeir, Basar Hachihava. Remeir, we know, was way after the Churban. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Kiva, who was a Talmud of Rabbi Eliezer, who was a Talmud of Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the Nasi at the time of the Churban. So once we know that Yehuda ben Shamua is a Talmud of Remeir, then we know that Yehuda ben Shamua came after the Churban. Now, how do we know that he is Taka, the Talmud of Remeir? It says in the Brisa, you have a glass keli that got a hole, and to patch it up, you poured into it lead, which is a metal. So Amr B'Shimon Gamliel, Yehuda ben Shamua, Metame Mishum Remeir. He says it's Tami. He's right there as a raya that he's the Talmud of Remeir. V'chachamim mitar. The Chacham say it's tahar. Now Rashi's bothered. What does it mean that it's tahar? A kli schuchis could of course become Tami. So Rashi has two pshatim, either referring to here to Tuma Yeshana, a kli matras, a metal kli that becomes tameh, then it gets broken, so it becomes tahor. When you patch it up again, the old Tuma comes back, it's a Tuma derabanan. So on that, Reb Meir said that you go basa the maimed, and therefore your kli schuchas has a din of a kli matras, so there's Tuma Yeshana, the old Tuma comes back. The Chachamim mitaharin means they hold that it's a kli schuchas, and a kli schuchas, since you don't go basa the maimed, it's a kli schuchas, and by kli schuchas you don't have the concept of Tuma Yeshana. That's what it means mitaharin. But of course, it could become tameh if something touches it. Another pshat that Rashi has is the Chama Mitar means they're mitar from the kli matras, which is a Tuma deraisa. Rameir held it's tameh deraisa because you go basa the maimed. They held it's tar from the deraisa, but about it's still tameh derabanan of the kli schuchas. Al Kapan Avoshteta, we see we clearly proved that the story was after the Churban. So how could it be that they added on to Megillus Tainis where it was already batal? And for the Gemara, you're right. Tanai, it's a Machlekes Tanai. The Tanya. It says at the end of all the dates in the Megillus Tainis, it says this: Hayamam ha'elu haksulu Megillus Tainis beimizman shebezimikdash kaim. Whether the Bezimikdash is still around beimizman shebezimikdash kaim or it's after the Churban, asurin divrei Meir means it was not batal. Rabbi Yossi Omer bezman shebezimikdash kaim asur, and then it stays intact. And tesha simcha hilam because it's a joy. It's a yomtiv. Ein beis hamikdash chaim, but once there's a churban return, then it's already an evil. The Aruch HaNer explains how this is answering the kasha. Lamaisa, there's a story on the 28th of Adar that was after the churban. But now that it's a Machlekes names, the pshat is of the Aruch HaNer that story was not a libud the kuliyama. It was only Yehuda ben Shemua who held, like his Rabbi Taka, Reb Meir, that Megillus Tainus was not batal. But if you would ask Rabbi Yossi, he would say there's no such thing. He held that there was no such yomtiv and they never added anything because it was already batal. The hilchas of paskins the Gemara batlu. It's talk about we paskin like Rabbi Yossi. The hilchas of loy batlu we paskin like Rabbi Meir. The kasha hilchas of the steering stack. Loy kasha kan bechanukah we paskin like Rabbi Meir that it was not batal is by Chanukah and Purim. Those stay intact. Kan b'shayim when do we paskin like Rabbi Yossi that it is batal in the Megillus Tainis? That's on all the other days, all the other Yavim Tovim that are in the Megillus Tainis. The Torah points out that the fact that we're paskining like Rabbi Meir by Chanukah, so halacha v'chal de pligi, which means Rabbi Yossi holds that it's batal, sai Chanukah, sai Purim, even Chanukah. It's interesting because the Gemara before, and Cheshvan Rabbi said that Chanukah everybody would be made because it was mefarsem nisa. So the Yevon is masber. The Gemara only was mechadish that reason because at that point we still thought it was a machlekes amirayim, and we got stuck with the raya from that they made a fast on Chanukah. So the Gemara got around it says Chanukah everyone's made. But once it's a machlekes tanaim, it's like the Yevon, the Gemara fell off of that svar, and Rabbi Yossi says it's batal and ganzen, even Chanukah. The Mishnah said, "Al elu b'nei Rosh Hashanah, v'al Tishrei b'nei Takanas Hamoedas." That's when we send shluchin out. Fact the Gemara, even the nafkilu ha'elul. Once the shluchim go out by elul, so at Tishrei lamaluhu. Why do they have to go out on Tishrei? They already know when the elul is, so they know when the end of elul is. V'chitei medilma abru elul. Maybe they don't know whether elul will be a malay or a chaser. V'amar Reb Chanina bar Kahana amar Rav Niyomais ezer ve'elach. From that point in history in Adam Mitzinu elul mover, they never did it. And for the Gemara, they didn't do it. That's a historical fact because they didn't need it. If it was necessary, we would. And like the Gemara Daf Chaf is going to tell us two different reasons of why we would make the Elam over, because we want to avoid that Shabbos and Yom Tov, where Shabbos and Kippur come out back to back in consecutive days, either because of vegetables or because of the Messiah, people that die. We'll see more about this on Daf Chaf. In fact, the Gemara, HaMekalkel Rosh Hashanah, you're going to ruin Rosh Hashanah if you make Elul a Malay. And Rashi explains, and both the Turei Even and the Aruch HaNer point out that Rashi's Lishi Tasai in the Mishnah Yitches, who said that the Bnei Goyla only had to keep one day of Rosh Hashanah because the assumption is that Elul it will remain a chassid like it does in most years. So now, for the Gemara, if they're only keeping one day, and then behind the scenes Bezdin makes Elul Amalei, it comes out that the Bnei Goyla all kept the wrong day, and the next day, which is the real Rosh Hashanah, they're going to treat it as chol. So you're ruining things. And for the Gemara, it's still mutiv to kalkal Rosh Hashanah v'leis kalkal kulam moedes. It's kedai to go through this kilkul of Rosh Hashanah in the Bnei Goyla and to avoid having that Shabbos and Yom Tov, Shabbos and Yom Kippur are back to back. Tekanam, I bring a raya. Diktani al tishrei mipnei takanas hamoedes shma mina. The Turei Even explains the diak is that it didn't say mipnei hamoedes like it says al nisan mipnei hapesach. It's mipnei takanas hamoedes. That's mashma that even though there's going to be a kilkul on the Rosh Hashanah, still for the takanas hamoedes that takes priority. Then the Mishnah said, "Val Kislev b'nei Chanukah, val Adar b'nei Purim." We send out shluchim in Kislev for Chanukah, and in Adar, so we have the right day for Purim. If there was an Ibra year after Adar already began, and therefore the shluchim that go out on Adar cannot notify anybody about the Ibra year because it didn't take place yet. There, still, the Mishnah did not say that in such a case you would go out. Masisin Deloike Rebbe, our Mishnah is not like Rebbe who says you do. The Tanya says in the Brayz, Rebbe Amrim, Nisa Avra Hashanah, if there's an Ibir after Adar already began, then Yoitzin Af al Adar Hasheni, then you also have to go out for Adar Hasheni B'nei HaPurim, in order that they should know when Purim is. Now Taisus asks that our Mishnah that says they don't go out, well, if they don't go out for the Adar Sheni, then how will they know that it's an Ibir B'chlal? So Taisus says, Achap, that since normal years when it's Nisan, they meet the Shluchim, and this year the Shluchim didn't come, they'll know that it's not Nisan, and it must be an Ibir, and it's Adar Sheni. The Ritva says a different teretz. He says that they did go out. As soon as they knew, they were notified that as soon as it was passing that it's going to be an Ibir, they taka went out. But that doesn't mean they knew when it was going to be Rosh Chodesh yet. That's a separate Cheshvan. Our mission is not talking about that Cheshvan. So back to the Gemara, we have a machlokes Tanaim if you go out, if Shluchim are sent out for Adar Sheni or not. This is the machlokes. The Mar Savar, our Mishnah that says that they do not go out on Adar Sheni, it holds kol mitzvahs hanoiges b'sheni noiges b'rishon. All the mitzvahs in Adar Sheni could be done on Adar Aleph, and they already did it, so there's no reason to go out. Umar Savar Rebbe holds kol mitzvahs hanoiges b'sheni ein noiges b'rishon, and therefore you must do the mitzvahs in Adar Sheni, and you have to know when is the day of Rosh Chodesh of Adar Sheni. So the shluchim have to go out for Adar Sheni. Everything more loy. The kul yam mitzvahs hanoiges b'sheni ein noiges b'rishon, and therefore everybody agrees. Even the Tan of our Mishnah agrees that it's important to know when the Rosh Chodesh of Adar Beis is in order to know when to do the mitzvahs of Purim. So what is the machlokes? V'hacha be'ibur shana k'mifluki. The ibur shana, Rashi explains, is when we make an ibur, the month that we're adding is not Adar Beis, it's Adar Aleph. Adar Beis is the regular Adar. The month, the 13th month we're putting into the cycle is the Adar Aleph. So they're arguing in that ibur shana. The Tanya. Kama ibur shana lama. The Tana Kama says that it's exactly 30 days and 30 days only. Therefore, our Mishnah holds you don't have to send shluchim in Adar Sheni, because once you know the Rosh Chodesh of Adar Aleph, and you can determine that it's an Ibir, you know automatically that Adar Aleph is always 30 days. So you know when Adar Beis is, and therefore you know when Purim is. No reason for Shluchim to go out. Rabbi Shem Gamil Omer Chodesh, it's 29 days. 30 days that we do know, but Chodesh Namiyadi, if it's 29 days, we also know. So the Gemara clarifies. Amar Papa. Mandar Chodesh Ruatza Shloshim. He means you can do either 29 or 30. So Rabbi holds like this Shita, and therefore, even if we know that it's an Ibir, but we don't know how long Adar Aleph is, so we need Shluchim to come out and tell us when Adar Beis was. But according to the Rabbanan, they hold that it's always 30, so you know, and there's no reason to send out shluchim. Hey, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Mishum Kahalo Kadisha Yerushalayim Al Shnei Adarim, the two Adars and a Libir Shemekatshim Oisam B'Yoyim Iburehan. We make the Kiddush HaChodesh on the day of Iburehan. Rashi explains Iburehan means the day that had this outgoing month been a Malay, this is the day that would have been the day that turns into a Malay. In other words, day 30 of every month. Day 30, if the month will be a Malay, so that becomes the day that makes it day 30, makes it a Malay. They were Mekadosh it on that day, meaning the outgoing month remains a Chaser, only 29 days. So both others are Chaser, L'meimra, meaning to say the Chaser and Avdinan, Malay and Lo Avdinan, both others are 29 and not 30 days. La'afukim, the Darish Renachem Bar Chizda, the Darish Renachem Bar Chizda, hey, Rabbi Simon, Mishum Chagi Zacharim Malachai, those three Nevi'im, Al Shnei Adarim, these two as follows. Shem Ratzu, Lasais and Shnei Malay and Oisin. If you want to make them both 30, you could. Shnei Chaser and Oisin, both 29, also could. Echad Malay, specifically, Adar Aleph as a Malay, the Echad Chaser, Adar Beis as a Chaser, Oisin, that you could do, but not the other way around. The Kacha Yunayim and Begala, that's taka how they did it, that the Adar Rishon was a Malay and the Adar Sheni was a Chaser. And Mishum Rabbeinu Amr, in the name of Rav, they said, La'olam, Echad Malay, Echad Chaser, always Adar Rishon is a Malay, Adar Sheni is a Chaser, Ad, Sheyivadal Chashu Hukla Rosh Chodesh Bizmane, until somebody comes to Eretz Yisrael and tells you that the Rosh Chodesh of Adar Sheni took place on day 31 of the Adar Rishon, meaning that the Rosh Chodesh of Adar Sheni took place on day 30 of the Adar Rishon, which would make Adar Rishon a Chaser. But until somebody tells that, you have to assume that Adar Rishon is going to be a Malay. Shalchalei Lamar Ukva, Adar Hasamach LaNisan, La'olam Chaser. When it comes to the Adar that's next to Nisan, so if it's an Ibriyah, that would be the second Adar, that is always going to be a Chaser. And we'll continue the Gemara at the next show. So today, we learned that the days that are written in Megillas Tainus are Aser B'Tainus both the day before and the day after, because Divrei Steif and Tzrich and Chizuk. Shabbos and Yantiv, however, before and after Amata, because Ein Divrei Torah Tzrich and Chizuk. So the Machlokes are Meir and Rabbi Yossi, if Megillas Tainus was batal or not. We pass on like Meir by Chanukah and Purim that it was not batal, and like Rabbi Yossi by all the other days that it's yeah batal. The Shluchim go out in Tishrei because maybe they made Elul Amalei in order to be masak in the moedes that you shouldn't have Shabbos and Yom Tov consecutive next to each other. The machlokes between our Mishnah and Rabbi, if the shluchim go out on Adar Sheni, when it became an ibiyur after the shluchim went out already on the first Adar. And what's a tolian? It's totally if Adar Rishon is always a male, and therefore once they know based on Adar Aleph, when that was, they'll know automatically when the Rosh Chodesh Adar Beis is, in order to do Purim Bismane. That's the Machlekes. And finally, in Adar Rishon, we have three shitas. Either it's always a Male, always a Chaser, or Ratza Male, Ratza Chaser. And Adar Sheni, we have two shitas. Either Ratza Male, Ratza Chaser, or always a Chaser.